You're listening to Whoa! Potluck.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Books and Boba, a book club and podcast featuring books by Asian and Asian American authors. My name is Marvin Yue.
And I'm Rira Yu.
And we are coming at you at the end of 2017. Can you believe it that we made it past this total? I was thinking, in general, it was kind of a shitty year. But personally, we were able to do some pretty cool things with it.
I guess so.
On a personal level, we
Yeah.
read 12 books by Asian American authors. We kept this podcast is still alive after a year.
Right?
And yeah, so small little victories in the face of horrifying existential crises all around. But hello, I am back from a month-long trip. If you've been wondering where our podcast has been.
I was about to say, Marvin's here.
Yeah, we're recording this the day before the New Year weekend holiday.
Yeah, weekend holiday.
And there's a lot to get through, and we didn't really have a full-on news and new releases episode this month. So instead of having one super long episode where we talk about the news and then go into our monthly book review or our monthly book discussion, we figured we'd do two normal-sized episodes, one after another, but that way you can pick and choose what you want to listen to first.
Yeah, I took a break from book Twitter for like a week and a half, leading up to the holidays. And when I got back on, I was like, what is going on? Everybody is freaking out over Twitter.
What is going on? There's been a couple
incidents.
And I guess we'll get into that.
We'll get into that. There's one particular one that happened earlier this week, and we'll get more into that. But anything that happened before that, I'm just like, I don't know what happened. There was way too much to get through on the Twitter feed.
Sometimes it's good to take a break from Twitter.
Yeah. I
was in China for a week, and I didn't have full access to Twitter. I still could see Twitter because of my T-Mobile.
So you have like free international. Yeah.
I do get Twitter, but it also throttles me at like Edge network connections, so it takes like forever to update. But it was kind of refreshing to like not have to stay updated.
Yeah.
Although this is during the time when like Doug Jones was being
that
elected,
too,
and the tax bill was going through, and just all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah. But since it is pretty much the end of 2017, I have to ask, what are some of your favorite books that you've read this year?
My favorite books, right before I left for Asia, I was able to binge through the entirety of Jade City by Fonda Lee, which I was supposed to bring for you to borrow, but I forgot.
I bought it. It was on sale on Kindle for like $3, and I was like, I have a policy where it's like, if it's less than coffee, I'll usually buy it.
Yeah. And I guess that's like that book, The Grace of Kings and Wall of Storms, like these big epic Asian inspired fantasies has been like really.
I figured that was your jam, which is why I recommended Grace of Kings to you, which is weird because I have not read that book. Marvin lent it to me a while ago, and I haven't gotten into it yet.
It's a big long book.
Yeah, I've had like other books to read beforehand.
But this our December pick was actually super interesting, and I didn't expect to be into it as much as I did. We'll get into that in the next episode. But I can see why this guy won that Nobel Prize.
Yeah. I guess for me, she's not an Asian American or Asian author, but I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas about like a week and a half ago, and oh boy, that book is like it was real, and it was real, but it was also super funny and like super relatable. And I really liked it. It was probably my favorite book of 2017 of all the books that I read
this
past year. The movie is coming out in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to watch it. It's about like Black Lives Matter, and I think it's a super important book, and it's been on the New York Times bestseller list for over 40 weeks. So Yeah, it's a really good book. Asian and Asian American author wise, I'm trying to think. I really like I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu.
That is
so
your
much,
jam.
That was so much fun.
If Asian Inspired Fantasy is my jam, like
Well, I love
Korean
fantasy too.
drama inspired shenanigans is definitely your jam.
I mean, listen, this year has
You
been
used to be
really
the editor of
this
Korean
year,
magazine.
This year was so bad, and I needed something very light and funny. Usually, I'm into like more heavy stuff, but this year I was like, I just need all of the light comedy stuff that I can read.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I also liked Not Your Sidekick by C.B. Lee. That came out the year before.
Right.
But I finally got to it and sat down and read it. And I also really liked it. It's post-apocalyptic, but it's actually really fun to read.
You know, I feel like we're living in the post-apocalypse right now.
I know.
I mean, if anything, we're like we're in the phase where like civilization's crumbling. We're on our way towards dystopia as we see it. You know. So we might as well be prepared for what kind of dystopia we're heading towards.
Around this time last year, I said my goal was to read 100 books, but then Persona 5 came out, and I was like, oh, I'm never going to reach that goal. So I cut it to 50, and I have about like 2 days left to like meet that goal.
How many books do you have left?
Around 2 more.
Okay.
But I might just like...
That's pretty impressive.
I might just like read mangas or like graphic novels too. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Also, I reread some books
That's an
too.
asterisk right there.
So I didn't include books that I reread, but they should count because they're a full-size book. So anyway, we have a bunch of new releases to get through.
Yeah, so here are the new releases for the month of December leading up to the first week of January. Books by Asian American authors or authors from the Asia diaspora. We don't discriminate here on Books and Boba. Let's start. Let's get started. Why don't you start us off with the first one?
Yeah, sure. First off on our list is Star City by Edwin Peng, published by Evolved Publishing.
Edwin's one of our Twitter followers.
Yes, he is very active. Released on December 4th, when 18-year-old Emma Smith enlists in a collaborative project to cure osteosarcoma with an alien race called a Baron. She is paired up with Separainen, a young Baron asteroid miner who cares little about meeting humans. As political struggles intensify between feuding human and Baron factions, anti-alien sentiment on Earth reaches a lethal pitch. The two young ambassadors must risk everything to help maintain the fragile peace between the two species. And that is Star City by Edwin Peng.
Nice. Next up is Salvage, Poems by Cynthia Dewey Oka, published by Tri-Quarterly, released on December 15th. How do we transform the wreckage of our identities? Oka's evocative collection answers this question by brimming with what we salvage from our most deep-seated battles. Reflecting the many dimensions of the poet's life, Salvage manifests an intermixture of aesthetics forms that encompasses multiple social, political, and cultural contexts, leading readers to Bali, Indonesia, to the Pacific Northwest, and to South Jersey and Philadelphia.
Next, we have Shadow Girl by Lyanna Liu, published by Harper Teen, released on December 19th. The house on Arrow Island is full of mystery, yet when May arrives, she can't help feeling relieved. She's happy to spend the summer in an actual mansion tutoring a rich man's daughter, if it means a break from her dysfunctional family. And Ella Morrison seems like an easy charge, sweet and well-behaved. But all is not quite as it seems when May begins to hear unexplained noises, the howling, thumping, and cries at night. May doesn't believe in ghosts, but she can't shake her fear that there is danger lurking in the shadows of this beautiful house.
Ooh. Next up is The Young Queens by Kendari Blake, published by Harper Teen, released on December 26th. Mirabella, Arsenal, and Catherine weren't always scheming to murder each other in order to win the crown. Before they were poisoner, elemental, and naturalists, they were children, sisters, and friends. Prequel to the Three Dark Crowns series, this novella follows the three queens after they were born, before they were separated, during the time when they all lived together and loved each other, and the day they were torn apart. So this was part of the Three Dark Crowns series. One Dark Throne came out earlier this year. Which is book 2, right?
Yeah, that's book 2. Young Queens is the prequel. And it's pretty much like Game of Thrones style because like there's 3 sisters who are trying to like kill each other for the throne. So it like I haven't read it yet, but it sounds super fun and totally my jam.
Yeah.
Next up is A Distant Heart by Sonali Dev, published by Kensington Publishing Corporation, released on December 26th. At 11 years old, Kimmy develops a rare illness that requires her to be confined to a germ-free ivory tower in her family's mansion. The only thing to keep her company is the Arabian Sea churning outside her window. That is until she meets Rahul, who becomes Kimmy's eyes to the outside world for many years. After Kimmy undergoes a life-saving heart transplant, she becomes a target of a crime lord of a black market organ ring, and only Rahul can keep her safe.
There's been a lot of these like spin-offs of the Bubble Boy narrative lately, right? Like there's that, what was that movie that came out this year? Or was it last year? Everything?
Oh, wait, the movie? Yeah. That's Nicola Yoon's first novel, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, she's the author of The Sun is Also a Star, which I absolutely loved.
Yeah.
Also one of my favorite books that I read this year.
Next up is Chainbreaker by Tara Sim, published by Sky Pony Press, and this will release on January 2nd, 2018. Our first 2018 new release. Congratulations to Tara. In this second volume to the Timekeeper series, Danny Hart is hoping to deepen his relationship with the clock spirit Colton. However, sudden attacks on the clock towers in India forces Danny and fellow clock mechanic Daphne to travel to the city of Agra due to their past experience with stopped clocks. However, unlike the stopped clocks of England, the fallen clock towers in India have not stopped time yet. As Danny investigates further, he realizes that the British occupation may be sparking more than just attacks. So this is the sequel to Timekeeper.
And in Timekeeper, when the clocks stop in England, this is like alternate universe England.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Victorian. It sounded Victorian.
I hear it's kind of steampunky.
Yeah, it's
right?
steampunky.
Yeah.
So like when the clocks stop, time stops, and only the clock mechanics are able to fix those. So this is a follow-up. I'm not sure what it's exactly about because I haven't read Timekeeper. But if you are interested in reading Timekeeper, the first book in the Timekeeper series, Lit Celebration is reading that for their December-January pick. Yeah. So if you finish Timekeeper, if you finish Timekeeper, you can read Chainbreaker like almost immediately after, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, binge those books.
Next up is A State of Freedom by Neil Mukherjee, published by W.W. Norton Company, releases on January 2nd. Set in contemporary India, A State of Freedom focuses on the central defining events of our century, displacement and migration. 5 characters in very different circumstances, from a domestic cook in Mumbai to a vagrant and his dancing bear, find the meanings of dislocation and the desire to get more out of life.
I like that. I like more of these stories of diaspora and migration coming into like the mainstream.
I like books where there are multiple character POVs. So this also sounds like a book that I would probably enjoy.
Yeah. Is this the last one?
Yeah, it's the last one.
And finally, we have Batman Nightwalker by Marie Lu, published by Random House Books for Young Readers, releases on January 2nd. Young billionaire Bruce Wayne is turning 18 and about to inherit his family's fortune, not to mention the keys to Wayne Enterprises. And all the high-tech gadgets. And all the tech gadgetry his heart could ever desire. But after a run-in with the police, he's forced to do community service at Arkham Asylum. There he meets Madeline Wallace, an accused murderer with ties to the Nightwalkers, a gang that's terrorizing Gotham City. As the two grow closer, Bruce works to unravel the mystery behind Madeline and the Nightwalkers.
I want to read this so bad. I first heard about it when I went to the Warcross reading at Romans, and I was like, oh my God, YA Bruce Wayne. I must read this. I need this book in my life.
Are you into Gotham too?
Yes, Batman is my favorite superhero. So.
Even like teen melodrama, like...
Oh my God. I watch Rain, so I am all about the melodrama between, among teenagers. So I really, really want to read it.
That's another one of your jams right there.
Yeah, I have a lot of jams.
And those are the new releases leading up to the first week of January. Congratulations to all the authors for publishing their books. As always, if you have any books to add to our list, please sound off on our Goodreads forum.
A lot of people have been introducing themselves, and I'm very happy about that.
That is awesome. Yes. Nice to meet all of you.
Because we have like over 150 members on our Goodreads group, and only a handful of people introduce themselves.
A lot of lurkers.
So I'm just like, who are these people? And slowly but surely, people are introducing themselves. So
Yeah.
It makes me very happy. Moving on to news, our first piece of news is Dial Books acquired Fake Chinese Sounds, a graphic novel by Jing Jing Song. The book follows a fifth grader named Mei who meets her Taiwanese grandmother for the first time, which helps her understand her sense of self and gain a fresh perspective on her Asian American heritage. Publication is planned for fall 2019.
Nice. It's good to see these more grounded in reality graphic novels featuring Asian Americans and identity.
Yeah, I like graphic novels that go outside the superhero genre.
Yeah. Next up, Salam Reads bought Aisha Saeed's picture book, Bilal Cook's Dal. The story follows a boy who teaches his friends how to cook a favorite meal that requires patience and then shares it with his community. Anusha Saeed will illustrate the book, and publication is set for 2019. Another picture book for
Yay.
for diverse audiences.
We need more picture books by POCs. Next up is Holiday House acquired Hope Lin's debut picture book, My Tree, illustrated by Il Song Na. The book is about a Korean boy and his favorite plum tree in the backyard of his new home in America. Publication is slated for spring 2020.
Orca Books acquired the board book Diwali Lights by Reena Singh. The book explores the Indian Festival of Lights through rhyme and photographs. Publication is set for fall 2018.
Yeah, board book is a type of picture book, but it's like made of thicker
Nice.
cardboard.
Diwali's fun. We used to have a Diwali night for our grad school every year.
Yeah.
Our Indian classmates just go all out.
Yeah. I've seen like pictures of Indian people celebrating Diwali, and I'm like, wow, that looks like really beautiful and fun, and what a nice holiday. Next up is Strauss and Giroux bought Somewhere Only We Know, a new YA novel by Maringu. Pitched as a modern-day Roman holiday set in Hong Kong, the book follows one fateful meeting between a K-pop star who'd like to be anyone else and a charming conboy who's looking for a big break to impress his paparazzo father. Publication is set for spring 2019.
I feel like Maureen Gu just has your number. She like has like
Yes, she like I am her target demographic, and apparently like a lot of people on book Twitter as well, because when news of this book came out on Publishers Weekly, so many people tweeted a screenshot of it saying like, I need this book in my life. And I was like, this sounds amazing. I love Roman holiday. And of course, I'm like a big K-pop fan. I started a K-pop magazine when I was in college. So I'm like, yeah, this is my jam. I can't wait.
It's your jam, it's your beat, and Maureen Gu is going to squeeze you for all you're worth. It's great, though. When we talked to Maureen when she published her first book, I Believe in the Thing I'll Love, your favorite book of 2017 by Asian American author.
She has another book that's coming out in March.
Yeah, about food in SGV and stuff. Yeah.
That sounds like your book because food and SGV, I don't know, it just reminds me of you.
It's two things that I have a Venn diagram with.
Worlds colliding.
Next up, HarperCollins acquired a picture book based on the original Chinese poem Fa Mulan. The poem will be illustrated by Joy Ang and translated by Fei Lin Wu. Publication is slated for fall 2018.
So all these Mulan adaptations, they're coming just as the Mulan movie is going to hit theaters. And I'm like, yes, because if the Mulan live action doesn't deliver, we have all these other choices.
Yeah. I wonder how closely they're going to follow the poem, though, because the poem doesn't really end on it goes places that's more tragic than heroic.
Well, it's a picture book, so I'm guessing that they're going to not go too deep into the darker aspects of that poem. But so our final piece of news is the Joyce Carol Oates Twitter debacle.
All right, so you have to tell me who Joyce Carol Oates is, because I have no
She is
idea.
a very prolific author. She's published over 40 books. She won the National Book Award, the O. Henry Award, I think, and she's always quoted by book reviewers as like a very productive author, because her like method is writing longhand from like 8 a.m. to like noon, and then she writes in the evening. So she's been like cited as oh, like follow her style. She like churns out a lot of writing.
Okay.
But yeah,
So she's a big deal in the book
she
world.
is a very big deal in the book world. So this whole thing began when New York Times published an article that questioned whether or not reliance on sensitivity readers resulted in censorship. And it kind of leaned more towards like, oh, sensitivity readers are kind of like sanitizing books. And it quoted like a chunk of the article quoted Laura Moriarty, the author of American Heart, which was slammed for anti-Muslim representation. We've mentioned it on our previous mid-month episodes. The book also mentioned the continent, which we also had an entire episode on. And it also quoted like a bunch of publishers who said that sensitivity readers would have kind of like sanitized books like Huck Finn and To Kill a Mockingbird, being like, they were just pretty much saying like, oh, these books wouldn't exist if they had sensitivity readers, which is ridiculous. But moving on. So Danielle Clayton responded to the article with a really long thread on Twitter. And she was also cited in the article, and she was like not happy about how the article was written out.
So Danielle works with L&O on We Need Diverse Books.
Yes,
right?
yes. She is the COO, and she's the author of the upcoming novel, The Bells. Mm-hmm. And she pretty much said that the children's publishing industry gives a lot of privilege to white authors, cis authors, and able-bodied authors. And like at the same time, the publishing industry censor a lot of marginalized voices and not giving them a lot of opportunities.
Right.
So sensitivity readers have like pretty much leveled the playing field just a little bit. And she also said how like a lot of like white authors want to write about the Black experience, but the publishing industry doesn't want Black authors writing about the same thing,
right?
Which is what we've talked about in previous episodes and how problematic it is.
It's interesting because I work with collaboration for our listeners who don't know, and we work a lot with things like representation in media, and we have a lot of friends in like the media world, and this is very similar to a story that came up this past year where Ed Skrein was cast to play General Ben Daimyo from the next Hellboy, who is written in the comics as a Japanese-American army man. And Ed Skrein decided to step down, and
Daniel
Dae Kim took over the role. And instead of talking about like how this is a step towards, like better representation, a lot of our friends in media were actually shocked that they were being told by their editors and publishers to focus on the story instead. Like, what will this mean for white actors playing diverse roles in the future? Yeah. Like, instead of talking about how this just makes everything, it lifts everything up, it gives marginalized voices a chance to speak out. The story here instead from these major publications is, what will this mean for white voices? Yeah. Right?
I mean, like books like Huck Finn and To Kill a Mockingbird, like I don't like either. I mean, no, that's not true. I don't like Huck Finn. I hate Huck Finn. But To Kill a Mockingbird, I really liked it when I read it in school. Yeah. But at the same time, like when I go to bookstores and they have like a table for Black like books that talk about slavery and like Black representation, I don't really want to see white authors on that table. Like I would like to see the majority of that table like be to consist of Black authors, but unfortunately that is not the case. And it's really sad because the publishing industry, like 80% of editors, publishers, agents, they're white, and it's possible. I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant, but like it's entirely possible for a white author to submit their manuscript, get it edited by a white editor, and like pretty much have their entire book read by a white audience and still be successful.
Yeah.
But like POC authors, they don't really have that same opportunity. And I'm going to the next point where like Joyce Carol Oates quote tweeted Danielle Clayton and said, quote, "No one should censor writers. Just don't read what offends you. Start your own publishing houses and magazines, as many of us have done." Funny thing, Danielle Clayton is the co-founder of Cake Literary, a book development company.
Yeah.
So that company has churned out books like The Gauntlet by Karuna Riazi, Tiny Pretty Things, and it's just like she did start a company, and so many POC authors have created magazines and like small independent publishing houses. But there are like 5,000 books that come out every year. Like just a handful of small press imprints, they can't do all of the work. And the whole problem of saying like, oh, like just make your own shit, that's pretty much like, I think Marie Lu said it best on Twitter. She said, you're pretty much promoting segregation, separate but equal. And that never fucking works. And it's infuriating. I'm sorry. I'm going on a rant. I don't want to be that person, but it made me so mad.
I totally see why, because this is a type of tweet from someone who just doesn't recognize their own role in privilege or what privilege has done for their careers. And the thing is, like, I feel like time and time again, there's been tangible evidence of when you allow people to write, not even own voices, but like if you give room for minority authors to put their voices out there, you find something new, you find something fresh that people are drawn to. And these success stories are always seen as flukes or extraordinary, like they're always seen as not normal by the industry because they don't know, they've never seen that before. And there's a reason, because the industry actively prevents that from happening.
I do want to bring up the point, because this whole thing started with the question of whether or not sensitivity readers sanitize books and censor writers. Sensitivity readers, they're not censors. They are beta readers. They are your target audience. And like, honestly, it's essential to the editing process. Like, say if you're writing a book that's like based on like psychology, you would consult a psychologist. You would like, if you're writing a book on FBI, you would consult with an FBI agent. Like, you would do your research. And sensitivity readers, they offer like I don't want to say shortcut, but it's like they give you notes, they give you annotations to make it as authentic as possible. Because, you know, when like you can be a white author writing about like the Black experience, and you could have done all of your research and tried to be as respectful as possible. But at the end of the day, there are some things that you're not going to get right without consultation. And that's what sensitivity readers offer. And the fact that people are saying like, oh, we can't just write whatever we want now. Like, sensitivity readers are
ruining like our books.
And like, to put it under the umbrella of like, oh, they're part of like the outrage culture on social media. Like, I don't think that's fair, because people are just asking for authentic representation. People are asking for own voices. And I think those are things that is reasonable,
and in
to be
lieu of
honest.
own voices, we want to see our voices. Like, we want to see us in your characters that are supposed to represent us, not what you think we are.
Yeah.
Especially when that is skewed. And then that's when things like The Continent and other.
By the
books
way,
like,
The Continent, it's expected to come out in March, and like the New York Times article said, like, oh, the author had to rewrite good chunks of it, like for like 6 months, and like how hard that was. And then with Laura Moriarty, who's the author of American Heart, like she complained a lot about like how like the outrage from social media was like totally unexpected, and like she knew that it was going to be like controversial because she's writing about like Muslims in like concentration camps pretty much. And it's just like, why are you giving these people like extra room to argue their points? Like if you look at the ratio between like people who complain about sensitivity readers to like people like Daniel Clayton in that article saying like, this is important, sensitivity readers are important to the editing process, it's really skewed and unbalanced.
I mean, it goes back to just a general, I mean, and it's a symptom of a bigger like institutional thing, which is like white voices are just valued more than voices of color in media. That's why you have all these think pieces on the disenfranchised white America in the current political climate. Like so many of those compared to how many talking about people of color neighborhoods and people of color communities and how they're affected.
Yeah.
And I think it's a symptom of also like these editors probably don't know, like maybe they need to think about more diverse, voices as well, because everyone's first reaction is how this will affect us or how this will affect the status quo.
Yeah.
And part of existing as a person of color in America is to honestly go against the status quo, because status quo hasn't done us any favors at all.
Yeah. I do want to say that like sensitivity readers are also important for POC authors, because like say like the immigrant experience, for example, like there is no one immigrant experience. You can be like, I'm Korean American, and my immigrant experience is going to be different from, say, like Minji, who's been like a guest on the show before. And it's important to get sensitivity readers from like different backgrounds, because everybody has a different experience, and you want to be as authentic as possible, right?
Yeah, and we're moving towards this culture of inclusivity, right? That's the next buzzword beyond diversity, is inclusivity. And that involves all of us learning how to be inclusive. That involves me and us knowing more about how to talk about things like mental health issues, disability, LGBTQ, gender. Like, we're not saying that you can't talk about them. It's just understand how language affects people. And if you want to include characters that embody these stories, to really put in the effort to make it authentic. I hate the word authentic because it implies that there's one way of doing things. Yeah. Right.
I mean, when I say authentic, I just mean like do the legwork.
Yeah, like what you want is for someone to read your character and relate to them.
Yeah. Or at least like understand where they come from.
Yeah.
Like make it logical.
like if you write a disabled character and the people in the disability community don't relate to them, you fucked up. You did something wrong.
Yeah.
Right? I think that's the bottom line. It's not their outrage. It's like you missed something.
Yeah, and like you can just like brush it to the side and say like, oh, it's just one sensitivity reader who thinks that like this representation is not accurate. But the thing is that one sensitivity reader represents thousands of readers who like don't have the energy to finish your book because it's so bad that like and so bad and racist or whatever. It's just like, I think it's really important to listen to the community that you're writing about, like writing the experience about.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, make your own shit does not help. It's not a good advice. And honestly, if you're in a position of power, if you're not a marginalized voice, I think that you should uplift like own voices, because, like writing about other people's experiences like that. I mean, I don't know. There's like a lot of nuance to it, but I think the best way to support POC voices is to buy their work and to make sure that they have equal opportunity and
it is their work.
Yeah, just support their work, buy their books. Yeah.
That's all we ask.
2017.
It's almost over. It's almost over.
over.
2018 is I don't know, more of the same, I guess.
2018 has some excellent books coming out. I am very excited.
And on that note, we're going to call it for this episode of Books and Boba, at least this half of the episode. Our next episode, which will also be releasing the same day as this one, will encompass our book discussion for our December 2017 pick, Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. For those of you who haven't read it yet and are just going to skip it till later, don't forget our January pick is Pachinko
by Minjin Lee.
Yeah, and it's out on paperback now, so you can get it however you want, hardcover, paperback, Kindle. All the options are out there, and this is another highly rated book that's been on our radar for the past year now.
Yeah, for a while now. I literally
it's a lot of people's favorite book of 2017.
I would have picked it for an earlier book club pick, but I waited until the paperback was available because I wanted it to be more accessible to people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, an excuse for me to read Pachinko, which has been on my bookshelf for over a year.
Looking forward to cracking that open. As always, don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcasts. Join our Goodreads forums to discuss Asian American books. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. We've been working on a very impressive looking graphic that's just a debut, hopefully by the new year, encompassing all the books
from
2017,
or all the books that I know about.
And yeah, on that note, go ahead and flip over to our next episode to listen to us discuss Never Let Me Go, or we'll see you all next time on Books and Boba. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Books and Boba was hosted by Marvin Yue and Reed Ryu, and produced and edited by Marvin Yue. Books and Boba is a proud member of the Potluck Podcast Collective, a collective of podcasts featuring unique voices from the Asian American community. If you liked our show, check out one of the other great podcasts from the collective, including the Collabcast. The Collabcast is a weekly podcast about pop culture and the creative life from an Asian American perspective, and the official podcast of the collaboration movement. You can find the Collabcast and the other great programs of the Potluck Collective by going to our website at www.podcastpotluck.com.